Hi everyone, it's Larissa Stupid here again, and welcome back to the Venom podcast. This is episode number 4. This time around it's just myself, but we also have a special guest for you. It's Merlin Alderslade from Metal Hammer UK. Merlin is the editor of the magazine, and we will be discussing his career path, where he started, where he's at now, and how he got from A to B, and as well as some really interesting conversations and things he has experienced in his career. Enjoy. This is Merlin. I got so many interesting questions for you today, Merlin, and I'm just gonna start away. Because you're obviously an editor for Metal Hammer, and how long have you been doing that for now?
So I've been at Metal Hammer. This is actually my 10th year this year, which makes me feel as old as time. But I think this year is going to be my 5th year as editor as well. So 10 years in total, but 5 years as editor.
Yeah, that's a lot of experience.
I guess it is when you put it like that. It's weird to think about, but yeah, I suppose so. I hope so.
So I would like to know, what is the main thing that you look for in writers? Is it experience and quality of work first, or qualifications second? I would like, what is your main perspective there?
Oh man, I mean, it's hard because, I mean, some kind of quality has to be there first and foremost. You know, you get people who are naturally good at writing, people who aren't naturally good at writing, but can maybe be kind of molded to be a bit better and improve their work. And some people where writing is just not their thing at all. And we get applications from like all sorts of people from various levels, but really to kind of write for a place like Metal Hammer, you have to have a pretty solid grasp of writing in the first place. Obviously that kind of coincides directly with really knowing your shit about metal and knowing about rock music and knowing about the scene. It doesn't mean you have to know everything about the scene, but as long as there's like certain pockets of it which you're passionate about and your knowledge are about, and there's something you can bring to the table, then that's really important as well. But yeah, if you can have all the kind of passion and knowledge in the world, and that can absolutely be put into like other great things in the music industry. But in terms of, you know, contributing to someone like us, or, you know, someone like Kerrang or Revolver, you know, you've got to have a really solid basic grasp of writing to start with. So I guess in a sense, writing is the most important thing, but obviously you've got to be a pretty passionate metalhead as well, because this isn't the easiest industry to break into. So yeah, it's a few different things put together, I guess. But if you're enthusiastic enough, who knows what can happen? Yeah.
I guess it's really important that you're actually knowledgeable about metal in general, because you have to be authentic. I mean, you're writing, you can learn to write about different things, but I think especially in metal, because it's such a subculture that is kind of proud of its roots and of knowledge about the actual genre in itself, I think it's quite important being knowledgeable in that perspective. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I mean when I say it kind of has to coincide with, you know, both things have to fit with each other really, because, you know, if you're super knowledgeable about metal, but you can't write at all, then there's just no way you're going to be able to write a feature for a place like Metal Hammer. But at the same time, if you're a fantastic writer, but you know absolutely nothing about the scene, then, you know, it's going to be hard to find you anything to write about, because you're just not going to, you know, metal's like anything that inspires a lot of passion. You have to kind of know a lot of the basics, and you have to kind of recognize certain touch points and references, and, you know, some of those things can be taught, I think, but you need some kind of connection and passion and knowledge about the scene to start with. Otherwise, I mean, I don't know why someone who doesn't like metal would want to write for Metal Hammer, to be honest, but I guess it could happen.
And what do you look for in regards to photographers when it comes to including their work in Metal Hammer and hiring them?
Well, that would be our editor, Louise Brock, would be better placed to answer that, really, because it's her that our photographers have to report into. But again, like, you know, I can't take a photo for shit myself, so I can't really, in one sense, I don't want to kind of judge people, but also, you know, live shots I tend to find is something people can get better at quite quickly. You know, there's a lot of photographers I've seen who can take a really solid shot at a live show and get the right angles, capture those moments that feel really animated and exciting. But I don't know, it's hard to kind of put a finger on it, but sometimes you'll see a photo. It could be in a magazine, it could even be on Instagram or something, and it just takes your breath away. And it could be at a gig, it could be of the crowd, it could be in a studio, like just a cool studio shot. There's some photographers out there, like people like Harris Newcomb and stuff, who obviously have a very recognizable style that they put into their photography. So it's not just about the photo, it's about the style and the look of it all as well. It's just got to look great, and it's got to, if we're looking at photos done by someone who wants to work for us, we're just kind of looking at stuff and envisioning how it would look on a page, because obviously we are a multi-brand website. We are a multi-platform brand now. The website is kind of the biggest thing we have, but in terms of the photography side of everything, the magazine is where you really get the room to show that stuff off. Yeah. So I guess we're just kind of looking for people who know how to capture a great image, or hopefully know how to imagine a great shoot. You know, people that have ideas for, right, we've got an interview with, you know, Venom prison, like, what can we do with them that might be different, exciting, interesting, not cheesy or kind of trying to make things work that don't really work. We can just come up with a really fun concept at the end. And, you know, we're very lucky to have a great team of photographers who can do that. And Louise is the one who really kind of looks after them.
Yeah. So we've actually been working with one of your photographers, Jake Owens,
Love him.
And yeah, we didn't know him at all. I remember he took pictures of us when we played shows with Suicide Silence, and he took photos in London. And one of the photos also was featured in Metal Hammer. And when I've seen that picture, it's kind of, I had white hair at the time. It's just my white hair everywhere and lots of smoke, and you can't see anything else, but the colors are beautiful because it's like blue and white and black kind of mixed together. And when I seen that photo, I was like, I want to take him on tour with us. Right,
exactly. So, when you see the photo, you kind of know, like, you know, you can't, that's not something you get by chance. It's like you've got to have such an eye to know the exact moments to set that camera off and capture that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I do find it really fascinating when you can actually start recognizing photographers by just looking at the picture, because of the grading that they use when they edit the pictures, or just the moment that they capture. And photography is a very special one. And like you say, the real place to showcase it is in print and in magazines. And I do have a question in regards to what it was like for you when coronavirus hit and everything kind of had to be put on hold for a while. And did you use your website even more, or your digital platforms even more than you did beforehand? Is that what kind of became your main source to connect with people during the pandemic?
I guess it kind of did by proxy, because, I mean, you know, like for everybody, the pandemic sucked for us. You know, our sales were hit very hard for the first few months, and that was really difficult. I mean, of course, in the magazine industry, it's been a very hard time. We've seen magazines like Kerrang and Q go out of print, who are absolute heavyweights. So it's not been easy for sure. I guess because technically there were less people able to get out and buy the magazine for the first few months of the pandemic, it meant that we were reaching fewer people on that front. And now that I think about it, we did experience a boost in traffic. So yeah, I suppose there were more people at home on computers and, you know, iPhones and iPads and whatever kind of coming to the website. So that did kind of happen. And, you know, we certainly knew that we had to make the most of that while we could. But I mean, the website has been such a huge part, and our social media as well. You know, we have 2 million people on Facebook. We have 200,000 on Instagram, over 500,000 on Twitter. Like, these are way more than the amount of people actually buying the magazine now. So like our digital footprint has been significantly bigger than the print side of stuff for a while now. So it's not changed much in that sense, but I suppose it's fortunate that we'd made a conscious effort to have built that up over the last 10 years so that we knew we still had a big kind of base to let people know that firstly, the magazine was still out there, but also that we were, you know, you can find all that great content on the websites and social media as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it was important for people being able to get the same quality of writing and stories and storytelling in general online that they used to get in print, because we weren't able to go out and buy magazines because they weren't considered essential as such, you know. And yeah, it's great that you're so up to date in that perspective, that you're everywhere, you cover all your bases, and it's really impressive to see.
Yeah, it's nice of you to say. It's something we've worked very hard on. I mean, when I first joined Metal Hammer, it was actually as online editor, and the way social media works has changed so much over the years, because things like Facebook are quite different in the way they let you promote yourselves now. But, you know, 10 years ago, I can't believe I'm saying that, it was still not a new platform, but it was, you know, brands were still kind of working out how to use it. And, you know, we worked very hard on the online side to kind of build that up. And the great people we've had on the online team since then have just continued all that work and just made it bigger and better. So it's been, you know, I think you have to be a multi-platform brand in 2021. You had to be one in 2015, let alone now. So, you know, we're well past that kind of debate now, I think.
Yeah. So up and coming bands are probably one of the most vital parts to press and give them the exposure they deserve. Bigger bands like Sabbath and Maiden will always hold that place. But what do you think it takes for new and upcoming bands to grow and fall into the bigger band position?
Well, I think that's a really good question. I think that, you know, I don't think we're going to see another Metallica anytime soon. We're not going to see another Iron Maiden or Slipknot or Avenged anytime soon. I just think for whatever reason it is, and there's a big combination of things that cause it. You know, metal especially is not really permeating the mainstream in the way it used to. You know, when I first got into metal, it was the early 2000s, and, you know, you had like, I mean, I think in my first year as a kind of metal fan, Limp Bizkit released Chocolate Starfish, and it became the fastest selling 1 week. It sold like the most album units in 1 week in history or something like that. And then like in the same month, Linkin Park released Hybrid Theory. So like it was an era where, and you know, the year after that we had like Mutta, Iowa, Toxicity. Like it was just, metal doesn't have that kind of presence anymore. It just doesn't. So I think it's not realistic to expect metal bands to graduate on that kind of level. But I think when you look at bands from the last 10 years, like Ghost, Baby Metal, Sabaton, Nightwish, you know, Parkway Drive, Architects, there are still a lot of heavy bands out there that are graduating into arenas and doing good things. You know, Bring Me the Horizon and Architects have both had #1 albums this year. And I think that the kind of one thing that links them all is that they've all stayed completely true to themselves. They've all evolved in ways that kind of enable them to fill bigger venues without sacrificing what it is about them that got them there in the first place. You know, you look at a band like Architects, they did the Here and Now about 10 years ago. And that was it seemed like a very conscious attempt to kind of streamline themselves and become catchier in a different band. And it didn't work. So they went back to being heavy again. And they kind of evolved more through that way. And now they're an arena band, you know? They're an absolute arena band and they've got a #1 album. So I think it is still possible for metal bands to break into the big leagues, I guess. It's not going to be like it was anytime soon where they're selling millions of albums a week and all that kind of stuff. But I think as long as bands stay true to themselves and have something unique and fresh to offer the scene, I think there's always a chance that they'll gravitate to something big. I mean, who on earth would have thought that we'd be talking about bands like Ghost and Baby Metal 10 years ago. Like, they are major bands now, and there's not another band like either of those bands in the world, and that's part of the reason why they're where they are, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do think that it probably matters that you are special in a sense that there isn't anyone else out there like you. You're more unique, and I do ask myself sometimes if the fact that everything is so readily available at the moment, or in this day and age, that you're able to basically go and listen and consume as much music as you can, and you weren't able to do that back in South 2000. I mean, I used to just get my music from, or learn about new bands just by watching MTV and like all kinds of music channels, and then go into the mainstream record stores and buy CDs there and just check them out. But at the moment, you're just getting bombarded with music, and I think because of this big choice, bands are just sometimes not able to reach the amount of people that they maybe would be able to back in the day. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. And I think also, to be honest, I think metal's been very slow in properly engaging with the streaming generation, which is understandable because metal bands are we're an album culture. It's not just about singles and playlists and stuff. That's not really how we operate. But it does seem like it's taken a little while for metal to kind of fully engage with that side of the music industry, I think. But I do think there are some things are changing. I just think it's a weird time because if you're a young music fan now, like you said, like if you're, a 14-year-old just discovering music for the first time and you go on Spotify, you could discover like Black Sabbath and Kanye West and, Aphex Twin and Billie Eilish in the same day. And you could decide that you're going to be in all of them. You're going to be into all of them. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't, it might not be like it was when we were younger, where you hear metal for the first time and you're like, what's this? And then you just go down a metal rabbit hole and that's all you're listening to for a while. And you kind of identify with that. Like, kids have access to everything now. And on one side of things, that's great because they're like, I'm going to say young people are just so educated on music in a way that I wasn't when I was younger, because they just know everything. Like, I see more 21-year-olds talking about Fleetwood Mac now than there were 21-year-olds talking about Fleetwood Mac when I was like 21. Do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of these older bands are suddenly cool again. Like, I see people talking about Limp Bizkit all over Instagram and TikTok now, and that kind of stuff definitely wasn't happening like 5 years ago. So there is some cool engagement there, but I think, you're right. It does make it harder for metal bands to kind of properly grow in the same way that they used to. And for some reason, metal bands aren't quite cool now. I kind of feel like metal's cool in a weird way because you see like stuff like Poppy and Post Malone's working with Ozzy and stuff. So on one side, I feel like metal's kind of cool, but it feels like the actual bands aren't really getting the benefit of that yet. I don't know. It's a bit of a weird time, to be honest.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It's kind of like, it's cool to take metal elements and mix them with other genres, but metal in itself is still kind of not that cool. But maybe that's what's going to make people discover it a bit more. Who knows?
I hope so. It's just weird because, like, you can go into H&M and buy an Iron Maiden t-shirt now. That wasn't happening when I was younger either. So metal fashion, like you say, elements of the music, metal iconography, that you're seeing that in the mainstream. But like, I don't know, it feels like, I don't know, why isn't a band like Code Orange absolutely massive by now? Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's a bit of a weird dynamic in all of that. And I couldn't tell you how it's going to play out. I've got no idea.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one to watch and follow.
Yeah.
And from a band point of view, you can have your greatest show at 10,000 cap festival or 100 cap room. What has been your best life experience on both ends of the spectrum?
Oh my God. That is so hard. God, I mean, the 100 cap room thing, I'm just trying to think of like big bands that I saw first start out there. I mean, I've seen some crazy bands that never really made it out of that kind of level. What were the bands? Do you remember that band Heck? What were they called before they were called Heck?
I don't even remember what they were
Was
called
it Heck?
before.
Oh, what were they called? You know the band I'm talking about, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were one of the craziest live bands I have ever seen, and they were always absolutely amazing. And they never seemed to really graduate out of like 100 cap or kind of 200 cap venues. I mean, I think I saw Dragon Force at the Barfly once. That was pretty crazy. Which again, that's not very punk rock to talk about Dragon Force, but I'm just thinking like seeing a band like that in such a small venue was pretty wild. I mean, in terms of the bigger gigs, they come to mind way more easily because I've been so lucky to see so many huge gigs. And, you know, Iron Maiden at Twickenham in 2008 was maybe my favourite gig ever because it was the first time I'd seen them play a lot of their kind of 80s material. And that was really cool. Anytime I've ever seen the Prodigy, not a metal band, but they're heavier than a lot of metal bands. Anytime I've seen the Prodigy has been absolutely amazing. They're probably my favourite live band of all time. God, there's just so many. I don't even know. I mean, like, live music never ceases to amaze me. Even just this weekend, we were just talking before we started recording about Download Pilot, and While She Sleeps at Download this past weekend was one of the best gigs I've been to in years. It was absolutely amazing.
It was very engaging, wasn't it? Just
yeah.
I've watched their set as well, and it was quite impressive to see the reaction and how much they've grown as well as a band since the last time I've seen them, which must have been around 2 years ago, and it was really, really cool. And they just piled it up on stage.
Yeah, it was. I love that band, and I never quite know where they sit with people because it seems like they've had a kind of bit of a slow build up because they've been, you know, we've been covering them out for 10 years now. But seeing a field of 10,000 people absolutely lose their mind for them was just really, really cool. You know, that was as affirming as any gig I've been to in recent years, you know. Well, I haven't been to many in the last year, so I guess it doesn't count.
Yeah, I actually just found out or remembered that I think Heck used to be called Baby Godzilla.
That was it, Baby Godzilla. Yeah. And then that tune was like, yo, oh, and a part of it. Like, they were an amazing band. I mean, again, didn't quite kind of break into the big leagues or anything, but in terms of like a gig where I almost feared for my safety, like when they were Baby Godzilla back in the early days, it was crazy. You genuinely didn't know what was going to happen at their shows.
That's like one of the best things that you can say about a show, really, about a small show especially.
Yeah,
it's
definitely
dangerous. Going back to digital platforms and social media as such, what is Metal Hammer doing in new media spaces like TikTok?
Well, we're not doing a lot on TikTok right now, and that's something that we're talking about a lot because, funny enough, we were just kind of talking about how metal is engaging with new generations of fans, and I kind of felt like there wasn't like a big space for metal on TikTok for a while. Like, you didn't really see it grow on there. But I have noticed that TikTok is starting to really, I don't know if it's like metal fans embracing TikTok or TikTok embracing metal or what it is, but I'm starting to see, you know, bands like, there seems to be a lot of new metal bands again. Like, it seems to be like a lot of bands like Papa Roach and Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park that are like going viral on there and inspiring like challenges and stuff. And we're also seeing a rise of more kind of metal influences, for want of a better word. I did an interview with a few metal influences a few weeks back. People like Sophie Lloyd, the guitarist, Kiki Wong, Cassiette. They're really kind of bringing metal to new generations. And I'm sure there'll be people listening that will like eye roll at that. But like, you look at someone like Kiki Wong, she's followed by like 200,000 people on Instagram, and she's playing like At the Gates riffs over Instagram, and that means that more people are seeing At the Gates through her than are following At the Gates on Instagram. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're definitely kind of looking into that kind of stuff now, but what we don't want to do is, you know, like, I'm 34, like, I feel like the Instagram generation is a little behind me. I'm not gonna you're not gonna see me jumping on TikTok kind of doing TikTok challenges and stuff. So we're kind of looking into that kind of stuff, but we want to make sure we get that kind of stuff right, because I think brands desperately trying to get down with the kids and stuff can just look cringe as fuck. But we do have an awesome staff writer called Lizzie Capewell, who is always kind of just letting us know what's kind of blowing up on TikTok and that, and we'll kind of engage with that a bit more and cover it and post articles and that kind of stuff. So we're starting to engage with that side of things more. But I think for now we're just concentrating more on, pushing all our news through Facebook, making the use of Instagram, which has a few TikTok elements to it now, I suppose, and all that kind of stuff. But at some point, I think you'll probably see Metal Hammer popping up on TikTok, but hopefully it won't be me doing it all.
Yeah, it's kind of like I've only recently started really getting to know TikTok a bit more, because like you, I just felt it's more for young kids. I'm 32 and I also kind of don't feel like it's my kind of audience, but there is some really cool aspects to TikTok. And I think I actually got to look into it when I've seen some Vulvodynia stuff popping off on TikTok.
Really?
And yeah, and there was like loads, and people were just posting crazy videos and stuff like that. And then I just started looking into it and thought, it's very interesting. It's very different in regards to, I don't know, just me not being really familiar with that kind of stuff. And I do feel like it could be utilized in a cool way, but I'm not sure how that's gonna happen. But back to influencers and metal, I've actually seen that Willow Smith has been posting covers of Deftones and playing like the heaviest riffs on her Instagram and stuff, and I was really, really surprised, and I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, her mum was in Wicked Wisdom, of course, which were a groove metal band around in the kind of mid-2000s. Jada Pinkett Smith is talking about, obviously, the actress. And I saw them at Download 2006. They played on the main stage, I think. So they were like quite a prominent part of the metal scene for a while. So I'm not surprised at all that Willow's like into rock music and stuff, and again, she is part of the generation who are just consuming everything. Loads of those. I don't think she's a kid; she's in like her mid-20s now, I think. But loads of people around that generation are into all sorts of stuff. And when I know there's a lot of cynicism around this, like, oh, she's just like doing it to look cool or whatever. But like, since when was metal actually cool? So I think it's awesome, and I think anytime someone who's high profile starts kind of shedding a light on our part of the music scene, especially when it's someone who's clearly really into it and genuinely loves all this stuff, I think it's great, because imagine how many people follow Willow Smith that probably haven't heard of a lot of these bands. I think she was like wearing a Mastodon t-shirt in one of those videos or something, and I just love the idea of loads of people being like, oh, Mastodon, who's that? And they're just going and getting their minds blown, I think it's cool.
I definitely agree with you. I think every time I see someone that I think is also a really creative person, but maybe would never consider that they like metal or heavy music in general, when I see them actually being into it and rocking it properly, then it makes me kind of feel really proud and be like, yeah, it reaches people.
Yeah, definitely. Because I understand people don't want metal to be bastardized by the mainstream all the time, because a lot of the time the people who are in the metal scene are like, we're outcasts. We're the kids that were picked on at school, and sometimes it feels like the kids that were beating us up for being grebos are now like walking around in Top Man Iron Maiden shirts being like, oh, heavy metal. So I get like why there's some resistance to it, but it's hard times out there for music artists, and it's hard times for bands, and I think anything that genuinely helps to promote metal artists and bring more attention to the scene in a positive way is a good thing. I really do.
Yeah. I just remembered as well the Ashniko and Impolite to Surf collab as well. That was cool. Yeah,
that was cool. Very strange, but very cool. And just to flip what I just said about people discovering stuff on his head, I didn't know who Ashniko was before that, so that I learned something from that collaboration.
See, we all got stuff to learn from each other.
Yeah, exactly. We can all be friends.
So, what would be your dream interview? You might have even done it already. Who knows?
Yeah, to be honest, I've been so lucky because, I've been at Metal Hammer for 10 years now, and I've been doing this in some form or another for like the better part of 15 years. So I've kind of ticked off most of my metal artists, to be honest. I mean, if anything, nowadays, I get more excited about the idea of talking to young bands that excite me, and I feel like pushing the scene forward. Bands like yourselves and Code Orange and, Power Trip, R.I.P. Riley. And, I was just trying to think of the last time I interviewed Twin Temple for the first time last year. They're not even a metal band. They're like a doo-wop band. They kind of sound like Amy Winehouse singing about Satan, but they've been totally embraced by the metal scene because it's fun. It's kind of subversive and edgy. And I absolutely adore them. I think they're one of the coolest things in the metal scene right now. And I interviewed for the first time a year ago, and I was really excited about doing that because I was like, oh yeah, I get to, talk to a new band and help promote them in the magazine and help like make people excited about them. That kind of stuff really excites me now. If I could think of like one artist from the like big leagues that I've not talked to yet, again, it's not metal specifically, but I would love to interview Liam Howlett from the Prodigy, because they're like one of my favorite bands of all time, and I just think he's a genius. So that just kind of popped into my head. That would definitely be up there. But in terms of the metal scene, it's honestly just interviewing younger artists and kind of helping to push that side of the scene that excites me the most now, I think.
Yeah, I understand that, especially if you've basically ticked off everything that you ever wanted to do or to interview, and speaking to now new people that are new to the scene, or maybe starting off new and fresh, and actually doing something cool and different and being able to just get to know them and see their perspective. I do see why that would be exciting.
Yeah, definitely. It's what this scene is all about at the end of the day. Axl Rose, there's one. It's a completely different note. I'd love to interview Axl Rose because he's just enigmatic and crazy, and I'd love to see what that would go like.
That would be probably a very interesting one.
Yeah, we've never had, I don't think we've ever had him interviewed in the magazine since I've been here, so it'd be a rare one as well.
Get on it.
Try it. If you're listening, Axl.
I'm sure he won't, but...
Yeah, you never know.
It's funny that you mentioned the Prodigy again, because they're one of the bands that got me into heavy music as well.
Awesome.
My sister is like 6 years older than me, and when I was around 10 years old, she was listening to the Prodigy and Nirvana and stuff like that, and that's kind of what I picked up from her, and that carried me forward in life. So yeah, I
adore them. I got a tattoo based off them when the day after Keith died, because I was so upset about it, and yeah, they are just comfortably my favorite metal band of all time.
Rest in peace.
Yeah,
another one.
Yeah, I know. It's hard. That's the thing about being a big music fan. We do lose a lot of people in our world.
Yeah, I do think that creative people often suffer from certain conditions, maybe physical, mental, addiction. And yeah, it's a hard one, but that is also why these people are capable of creating the music that they make. And I guess we also have to appreciate that in a weird way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an unfortunate side effect of the industry and the kind of creative minds and everything else. So yeah, it's an unfortunate side effect of it all, but fortunately the scene remains in pretty rude health, and I think it's important to continue celebrating that, and also try we're going off on a bit of a tangent now, but on our sides, on the media, I think there's always been a history of kind of glorifying kind of addiction and glorifying certain behaviors and all that kind of stuff, and I think that side of stuff is slowing down now as well. So I hope that will help to kind of change a lot of the ways in which these kind of situations happen. Yeah,
I do think that it kind of goes hand in hand. The media is often driving the train, if that makes sense, in regards to what people get to know about these type of things and how impressionable kids are nowadays as well. So yeah,
definitely.
What is the strangest thing that you have experienced during an interview?
Oh man. I mean, the most surreal thing is probably having Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden, my favourite band in the world, dressed in a pilot's uniform, about to fly me and some other press and Anthrax, weirdly. The band, not the substance. Across to fly. He was about to fly us all across Mexico on Ed Force One, the Iron Maiden plane, and he leant over the seat that I was sitting in and just looked at me and said, "So what do you think of the plane?" And I was just and I didn't know what to say. I don't know about planes. So I just kind of went, "It's big, Bruce." Like, I didn't know what to say. And then he went upstairs and we started to take off, we started to do what's they call it? The approach before you take off, I think they call it. And suddenly Bruce Dickinson's voice came through the tunnel. I go, "This is your pilot, Bruce speaking, blah, 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 blah." And it was so weird. It was amazing, but I was just like, it's not even like if my 14-year-old self could see me now, because Iron Maiden didn't do the plane thing when I was a kid. That didn't exist. So it's just like unlike anything I could have imagined. So I'd probably have to go with that, yeah. Really, really weird, but amazing.
That sounds crazy as fuck. I don't think many people would experience anything like that. So it's fucking insane.
I was very lucky. I felt very lucky to do that. My editor at the time, Alex, said, he said, "Do you want to go and do this Maiden thing?" Because he'd done it before, years before. And it's kind of like a rite of passage if you're an Iron Maiden fan, I guess, working for Metal Hammer. You get to go on the plane at some point, hopefully, if we're lucky.
Yeah, Jeff, our bassist, he absolutely loves Iron Maiden, and I bet he'd be jealous.
Yeah, it was. I just can't even describe. Even thinking about it now, I'm just like, God, did that really actually happen? Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Oh man! So we had a great time with the Metal Hammer sponsored tour, the Trivium, Power Trip, and Code Orange one. Obviously including Venom Prison. Are you planning more now the world is opening up a bit more?
Yeah, well, Metal Hammer used to do quite a lot of tours. We used to have the Defenders of the Faith tour back in the day, which used to, that was another tour that would go to like academy-sized venues. And there was the Razor tour, which is more about younger bands. So it used to be a very common thing, and then it kind of just dissipated as... I don't really know what happened with it. Like, I think, our attention turns to other things and other brand opportunities, I guess would be the corporate wanky way to say it. And then the whole Trivium thing basically came about because Matt Heathby kind of was just texting me one day being like, "Oh, would you be interested in..." Oh, no, I think he said, like, if Trivium were going to do a tour, like, what support bands would you put on it? And I kind of named some, and yourselves, Code Orange, Power Trip, I think Employed to Serve was another one. And he was like, "Oh, I was totally thinking of some of the same ones." And so we went to dinner and just kind of talked about it. And we were like, what if we did like a Metal Hammer Trivium tour? And we did like a cover on it where we could like do all the bands on the cover and all this kind of stuff. And because Trivium are just, we've been part of that band story since day one, pretty much. And like, I love Matt. He's such a great guy. He really cares about the metal scene and bringing up young bands. So that was almost kind of easy to bring together because Matt was so hands-on with it and all their team were so great. And, you and Venom Prison and all the other bands were also great. It was quite an easy one to bring together. So I'd love to do another one. I'm pretty sure we will do another one at some point. It's just looking for the right opportunity, making, I don't just want to slap Metal Hammer's name on a random tour with like one band we like on it. It has to feel like it's a full supporting bill that we want to get behind as well. So it's just waiting for the right opportunity really, because I've always wanted to do more Metal Hammer tours, but we weren't kind of going, right, who are we going to do a Metal Hammer tour this year, with this year. But that all kind of popped up. So, we are having a few conversations at the moment, funny enough. But I don't, you know, I'm not going to lie, it's going to be hard to top that one because that was like, I mean, the Brixton show was literally one of the best gigs I've ever been to. It was insane.
I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you enjoy the tour?
Oh yeah, it was insane. I loved Trivium like since I was a kid. And just being able to go on tour with them and get to know them, become friends with them, learn from them as a band. I mean, we're a really young band still, and being able to just watch them do their thing and just watch them perform every single day. You learn so much from going on tour with bands like that. And it definitely influenced us in the way that we are live, the way that we changed communicating with the audience as well.
Oh, wow.
It definitely left a big mark on us. And the fact that this tour was so diverse with Trivium and then 3 really young bands that are breaking through pretty much, and it's a really modern and amazing tour, and it was probably one of the coolest opportunities we've had so far.
It was amazing.
So thank you for that.
Oh no, I mean, look, we only just kind of helped throw some ideas around, and then you know, we did the cover with you as well, of course, which is cool. It was great seeing you, Matt, Jamie and Riley on a cover together. But, you know, it was definitely a big team effort. And, you know, needless to say, Trivium's team did the majority of the work to bring it together. But, I mean, it was amazing. And the thing is, everyone turned up. You know, you were on first and, like, as, like, easily the heaviest band on the bill, a death metal band playing Brixton Academy is a hard ask, but you were awesome that night. You were all absolutely turned up. And then Power Tripped and Code Orange just caused absolute chaos. And I remember saying to people, like, I love Trivium, but like these are like 3 like cutting edge, modern, hungry young bands. And like a lot of bands as well that kind of almost have one foot in the hardcore scene in some ways. And like Trivium are like a proper heavy metal band. Like, you know, they might end up getting a bit shown up here, but Trivium turned up and were like astonishingly good, just astonishingly good, probably the best I've seen them. So yeah, I mean that genuinely might be my favorite metal show of the last few years because it was just top to bottom amazing.
Yeah, it was great. The fact that you mentioning that we like it's 3 modern hungry bands and Trivium just being so confident in themselves as well. You could see that on stage. They are confident, but they're bringing these young bands on tour with them that they want to see grow as well, because they are basically putting them on stage in front of their fans. And we got to know the Trivium fans, the diehard Trivium fans. For some of them, this is probably the only band that they're listening to, as insane as it might sound. Wow. But they are very dedicated, and being able to impress them in a way, even though we're just like so completely different to Trivium, and being able to make some Trivium fans also Venom Prison fans, and also Power Trip and Code Orange fans. That was really cool. And I know for a fact, because I'm still in touch with some of the people that we met on the Trivium tour that were Trivium fans. They absolutely support Power Trip, Code Orange and Venom Prison, and they always go to the shows when we play anywhere nearby. And I do think it's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. I mean, that's what it's all about. Like, I think one really cool thing about the metal scene at the moment actually is that there are so many great young bands in it, but there's not like one obvious scene. It's not like, oh, it's all about the thrash scene, or it's all about the death metal scene or whatever. It's like there's just great bands coming from every side, and it feels like, you know, why the fuck not put all these lineups together? Why not? Like, you know, it educates everyone, it cross-pollinates the scene, and it makes everyone bigger and better, hopefully, at the end of it. So yeah, I think it's awesome. As I said, yeah, we got a big task to top that bill, I think, for a Metal Hammer tour.
Yeah, but I think there's quite a lot of young contenders as well to fill those spots. So definitely, I think the next time you pull it off, you'll be able to pull it off just as well.
Yeah, we're spoiled for great young bands at the moment for sure, which is really cool.
Yeah, especially just back to Download Fest. The pilot, it was all British bands. It was so, like, I was just standing there and watching Creeper and thinking to myself, It's insane. All of the bands that I've seen today and all over the weekend are bands that are from the UK. And it's good to see that the scene is so alive and especially now so hungry just to experience live music, and just it's such a cool thing to see and a cool feeling as well.
Yeah, it was amazing, and obviously everyone was so just happy to be back at a festival again, so the atmosphere was amazing from the start. But yeah, there was something really unique that I enjoyed about down. I was literally just saying this like 2 hours ago because we recorded our podcast today as well. But I think just the fact that it was not just a British lineup, but also like an intimate festival, like 10,000 people, you know, a tenth the size of Download normally. It just made it feel like it was our festival, you know, like these are our bands and this is our scene. And, you know, it's not always it's not easy to feel. I mean, I've never been that patriotic, but it's not easy to feel stoked about being British a lot of the time these days, to be honest. So it's nice to be able to do that in quite a positive way because, yeah, there were just so many great young bands on the bill that weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was so cool to see that from start to finish, from 11:30, people were around to see every single band. And, yeah, good feeling for the bands on stage, for sure.
Yeah, it was awesome.
What makes the culture of, say, Germany different in regards to the print media landscape? The UK only really has 2 big rock or metal publications, but Germany has several. Why do you think that is the case?
Oh, that's a good question as well. I mean, metal is obviously huge in Europe. You know, like I was just talking about bands like Sabaton and Nightwish and stuff. I know they're not German bands, of course, but you know, bands like that have like #1 albums in their homelands, you know. Germany is the same. I can't recall off the top of my head who's done what there, but you know, you regularly read some of the album charting places that metal bands get in places like Germany and other parts of Europe, and it's crazy. I mean, you look at Wacken, it sells out every year. It's always got a stacked lineup and people absolutely love it. It's a way more metal festival than Download is overall, but it's not far off the same size, I don't think. Might even be bigger, I don't know, but
I think it's bigger.
Wow. And that's crazy because it's bigger, but it's actually like more, not underground bands, of course, because they've got huge bands there, but like, you know, Download can book someone like AC/DC or, you know, like Aerosmith or whoever. You know, they got like Biffy Clyro playing next year. You know, I mean, that's not like a heavy metal band. Whereas Wacken is like almost exclusively heavy metal. Although I think I saw them book Limp Bizkit this year, which is badass, by the way. But so I just think Germany just has it's such a dedicated country. I mean, England's very dedicated to its heavy music as well. We're the birthplace of metal, but I think that Germany's got such a dedicated scene. And I also think that mainland Europe embraces the cheesy side of metal a bit more. You know, power metal is massive over there. And, you know, they don't have that same kind of slightly posturing cynicism that England has a lot. Kind of the same reason where, apart, you know, not including what's happened recently, but kind of the same reason why Eurovision is such a different culture in mainland Europe. Because, like, we can kind of... England doesn't take that kind of stuff too seriously, but a lot of the European nations are like, fuck yeah, Eurovision, let's go, you know? Yeah. And so I think those things all together just make a perfect breeding ground for a really healthy metal scene over there. And there's just a ton of great metal bands from that country as well. So it's all good stuff.
Yeah. Because I was growing up in Germany, obviously.
Of course.
I just remember... when I first got into metal and heavy music, just being able to go and pick up so many magazines. There was literally, I could go and pick up 10 magazines that would have something about metal in them back in the day. And it was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
I have one more question. This one is actually from Ash, but he's not here with us because he has hay fever.
Godspeed, Ash. We're thinking of you at this difficult time.
So, what makes Skindred the greatest rock band in human history?
I guess he saw them at download as well, or
He wasn't there, but yeah.
oh wow. Well, I definitely feel like Skin Dreader.
He is from Newport though, so that is why
There
there's
we
so much
go.
sentiment
Of course,
in this.
I should have put two and two together there. Yeah, they are one of the greatest British rock bands of the last 20 years plus. And I've got to say, like we were just talking about While She Sleeps, if it weren't for the fact that While She Sleeps were just so good, I think Skin Dread would have been the absolute best band of the weekend at Download Pilot. They're amazing. And just like, I think we needed that kind of pure positivity injected into us after an awful 18 months. Like, I love Skin Dread. I love Skin Dread. I interviewed Benji for the Metal Hammer podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he's always just like one of the best people to talk to. He's great.
We played with them at the Bloodstock, I think in 2017.
I thought you were going to say you supported them then. I was like, oh my God, like I'd love to see that crowd.
I wish, that'd be so sick. Yeah, we played with them at Bloodstock, and they were obviously so different from anyone playing there at that day, but they're just able to like animate people and just make everyone go crazy and have fun. And I really, really enjoyed watching them. And I think we're playing with them again.
I was just going to say, I think you are,
this year, yeah. So if Bloodstock happens, I hope it does. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them again.
Yeah, it'd be amazing. And yeah, hopefully Bloodstock does happen. And I know you've got, you're up on the main stage of Bloodstock, and I think that's such an awesome slot for, you're like under Dark Tranquility, one of the greatest melodic death metal bands of all time on the main stage. I think that's such a cool spot for a young British extreme metal band. So I'm really excited about that. And hopefully Bloodstock goes ahead. Hopefully the data from Download Pilot will show that we can have these kind of events this summer, and what weekend that'll be.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really hopeful. I do. Wasn't it weird just being around so many people again?
It was so strange. I mean, like, you obviously weren't playing that weekend, and I can't remember what band was on, but I just turned around and you were there, and I was like, oh my God, it's Larissa. Like,
I think it was While She Sleeps, to be honest.
Oh, was it really? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Like even artists that weren't playing have got to catch up with, and we've got such a great scene in here in the UK, and there's so many bands that I feel a real affinity for, and it was just great seeing everyone. It was amazing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. When I walked in and just walking through the sea of people, I felt so strange.
Yeah, it was surreal, wasn't it, for a bit?
Yeah, it was like, why? You're like, what am I doing here? There's so many people. Yeah. Oh my God. But then you just get used to it so quickly, and you just fall back into your natural habits of being around people and enjoying being so close with everyone. And it was so cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. We need another one. Come on, Bloodstock.
Yeah, Bloodstock. Yeah, so it was absolutely great talking to you and catching up with you a bit longer than on Saturday. And thank you for joining us, and I hope I'll see you at Bloodstock.
Hopefully. Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you all for listening. Make sure to click follow or subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're getting your podcasts from.
And also be sure to check out our merch store, www.venomprison.com.
See you guys soon.